Hey guys, welcome to this week's Downton Abbey, the Downton Abbey chat show. It's season 5, episode 6. I can't believe we're almost done with this season. It makes me upset. But anyway, this episode started out on a pretty somber note. Edith is about to get some really bad news. She got a telegram saying that Michael Gregson's newspaper editor is on his way, so he's got some news about Gregson that he's delivering in person. So you know that that's not a good sign. On a lighter note, Mary gets a letter that Charles Blake and Tony Gillingham will be in the area for the point-to-point horse race thingy. So they're going to be around at the same time, and of course, they're going to stay at Downton. Duh. Downton is basically a hotel, for real. But anyway, she's asking Anna, like, do I look frumpy? Do I need to change things up? She wants to look hot when these two arrive, so we'll come back to that. But anyway, we find out that Mr. Atticus Aldridge will also be participating in the horse race. So Rose wants to go, and she's like, why don't we make it like a family picnic day? Let's all go. And then Mary's like, yeah, we could even bring the kids. Wow, the kids get to go to something with you? That's wild. So what about Edith? She's just sitting there at the table like, ugh. She doesn't want to do that. She's freaking miserable. But anyway, we had another uh-oh moment because Anna forgot her button box back at the cottage, so Mr. Bates goes to look for it for her, and he can't find it. But you know what he does stumble upon? Lady Mary's mystery contraceptives and her copy of Married Love by Mary Stopes. Mr. Bates is just like, what the F? Because he doesn't know that that's Mary's, so it's not going to be good. But anyway, let's talk about the Dowager Countess. So she tracks down where Prince Karagan is living, and it's very humbling for her to visit him because he's like this Russian prince, and he's in London right now, and he's living in a crap hole pretty much compared to his former life. So she tells Prince Karagan, Rose's father is looking for your wife, the princess, and he's really close to tracking her down. So I just wanted to pass that information along to you. So I don't think that's the only reason that she visited him, because she did go alone. She made her maid wait outside, and the prince was like, Dowager Countess, he didn't call her that, I loved you and still love you more than anyone, including his wife. Whoa! Is he still trying to get with her? It kind of seems like it, and she's kind of like, what? Let's not talk about that. So it's pretty crazy, but we'll come back to that. So back at Downton, the newspaper editor arrives, and he meets with Edith and Lord Grantham, and just as we suspected, Michael Gregson was indeed killed by Hitler's thugs, and it's really a tough situation because they're just finding out now that, yes, he did die, but it's like a year after the fact, so it's really a weird mix of emotions. Like, they kind of knew all along that that's probably what happened, but now that they're finally getting confirmation, and it's tough. Silver lining, I guess, Edith has inherited Michael's publishing company, so what's she gonna do with that? We'll see. So Edith is like really, she's upset, of course, understandably. So she walks down to the Drew farm. She wants to see Marigold, and Mrs. Drew flat out says, no, you're not coming in. You need to leave right now. So it's really, she's really rude to Edith, but at the same time, like, you kind of have to see her side of things too. But Mr. Drew talks to Edith alone. He's like, you can't keep barging in like this. Like, I'm working on it. I'm trying to get her to come around, but you can't come down here like this because it's going to mess things up. I just need some time. And Edith is like, I don't have time. So she's getting really desperate at this point. So let's talk about Mr. Bates and Anna again. Things are really tense because of what he found back at the cottage. So eventually he confronts Anna about it, and he's pissed. He's like, why do you have these things when you're always telling me how much you want to have children and we're leaving it up to God and stuff? And she doesn't tell him that it's not hers. she's keeping that secret right now. She is angry that he is jumping to conclusions and assuming that it's hers. You guys need to communicate, come on. So, talk about marital issues. Cora goes into Robert's dressing room where he has a bed and is like, you need to move back into our bedroom right now. So, he says no at first, and he's like, you let Mr. Bricker get close to you, whatever. And she's like, okay, fine. If you can honestly tell me that you've never led anyone on by accident or let a flirtation go too far, then fine. But if that has happened, then I expect you back in our bedroom. So he's all like, bleh. And then after Cora leaves, he's like, oh shoot, remember that time I made out with that maid? I guess I have to move back into the bedroom. Alright, so it seems like things are starting to get back to normal for those two, which is good. Okay, so the police have returned to Downton. Not just the Downton officer, but that Scotland Yard guy is back. And this time, they want to question Baxter because they received this letter that was saying that Miss Baxter knows some information about Mr. and Mrs. Bates, and she needs to give it up. So the police are like, all right, Baxter, we know you have a criminal past, and if you don't answer our questions truthfully, we can send you back to jail without a trial. So she's just like, all right, there was some sort of incident when Mr. Green visited. I don't know what it was exactly, but something happened. And she also confirms that somebody did make a secret trip to London. She doesn't know who it was, or at least she doesn't say who it was, but they're like, all right, we'll be in touch. So Mrs. Hughes is just like, you have a criminal record? What the hell? She's shocked, but she asks her one question. Does her ladyship know about your past? And Baxter's like, yeah. So Mrs. Hughes is like, all right, well, in that case, we'll never speak of it again. All right, so let's talk about other stuff. Robert has been working on getting those new plans drawn up for building and renovations in the village on the housing, because it's pretty crappy housing and they want to up that a bit. So that's great and all, but more importantly, during this scene, they realize that Isis is kind of sluggish. She's kind of, I don't even know, she's just not looking good at this point. If they kill off Isis, I will lose it. Isn't it enough that we've already lost Sybil and Matthew, and just in this episode we find out that Michael Gregson is in fact dead? I can't deal with Isis dying. I just can't. Alright, so on a lighter note, Mary cut off all her hair. What? She got a nice little 20s bob, and I think one of the best parts of this scene was when Mary was leaving the hairdresser. He was like, at least she can carry it off. Most of them look like bald monkeys. What do you guys think of Mary's hair? Leave it in the comments. I thought it looked pretty good. I would have liked maybe a little bit longer in the back. I thought that little cowlick thing, I don't know what to call that. It was a little weird in the back for me, but I thought it looked good from the front. So leave it in the comments what you thought. Anyway, Thomas is looking like a hot mess still. He's looking rough. So he's getting really desperate, and we know this because he asks Baxter for help. So he reveals to her that he's having trouble with his treatments that he's been doing. He's been injecting himself like in the butt with all this stuff. And he shows her the injection site, and it looks really like, infected? I don't know. It's just not good. So she's like, that's messed up. We're going to Dr. Clarkson immediately. Bring all of your medications and such so we can show him what you've been doing. So they do go to see Dr. Clarkson, and we find out that Thomas went to London for electrotherapy, and Dr. Clarkson's like, why would you do that? Like, what is this for? So he reveals that, just as we suspected, Thomas has been going through all of this, been putting himself through all of this to try and make himself like women. That is so, so sad. So it's just really messed up because It's just sad. But Dr. Clarkson is a cool guy. He really is. He gives Thomas this great advice. He's like, there's no medication that's going to change this. And you need to just, like, accept it. Try to live as happy a life as you can. And it might sound crazy in, like, 2014 to be saying stuff like this. Even though, you know what, maybe it's not that crazy because there's still a lot of prejudice out there. But at this point in time, it's like, it's rough. So I really feel for Thomas with that. But anyway, I feel like I just rambled. Mrs. Patmore visits the cottage that she is looking to buy. She was talking about it in the last episode, and she invites Mrs. Hughes to join her, and then Mrs. Hughes is like, hey, Carson should come, yeah. So Mrs. Patmore agrees to it. This is kind of like the olive branch between Carson and Mrs. Patmore. So they're rebuilding or repairing their friendship, which is good to see. And Mrs. Patmore's like, I love this cottage. I'm going to rent it out, and then when I'm ready to retire, I'm going to live here. So she decides she's going to take it. She's going to buy it. So this really gets Mr. Carson thinking about his retirement. Like, what's he going to do? He's getting up there in the years. What's he going to do for the rest of his life? So we'll come back to that. Mary reveals her new hair do or don't. I think it's a do, at dinner, and most of them love it. They're like, oh, it's so you to do something like this. You look great. It's the 20s. But she did have a few haters. Dowager Countess was basically like holding back vomit at this point. She was not into it. Edith, I don't think she was so much upset about the haircut. I think she was just upset about the timing. She was like, how dare you do this the day after I find out the man that I love is dead? And then she's like, by the way, WTF is with this picnic that you're organizing. Do you expect me to go to this and like pretend to be happy? What's the deal? So, in true Mary fashion, Mary's just like, well, you spoil everything anyway. That was a real ouch moment. That was rough. So Edith storms out. She's upset. I don't blame her. It's a tough situation all around. So let's get back to Anna and Bates. They're chatting again, trying to make sense of what's happening. And Bates is like, do you not want to have my children because you think I'm a murderer? Is that what this is? And it's just like a very emotional scene. He reveals that he knew that it was Mr. Green all along who raped Anna, and of course he wanted to kill him. He planned to kill him. He bought those train tickets to go to London and to come back the same day. So in the end, he decided, I think it was on the platform before he was about to get on the train to go to London, that he wasn't going to do it because he knew that he would get caught, he would hang, and he couldn't do that to Anna. So he decided not to do it. He never went to London, and one of the most messed up parts of this whole thing, remember last season when they found that train ticket, the return ticket from London back to Downton in Bates's overcoat pocket, and Mary decided to throw it in the fire because she thought that that was going to be evidence that he was guilty. So she thought she was doing a good thing. Turns out that ticket would prove that Bates is innocent because it was never torn. You know, he didn't use that ticket. He never went to London. So it actually would have proven his innocence. So it kind of sucks that that evidence is gone now. But Anna is just glad to learn that he's innocent. She knows in her heart that he's innocent, and that makes her feel a lot better. So I'm wondering what's going to happen with that. I think that was pretty much the end of that in this episode, but what's going to happen next time? I don't know. There was a nice little friendship that really blossomed in this episode between Mosley and Daisy. They have a mutual love of history. And now that Miss Bunting is gone, Daisy's like, how am I going to learn stuff? What am I going to do? So Mosley's like, well, I know like a little bit about history, so I could help you with that. I can't really help you with the math, but history, yay. So it was cool to see them bonding over a common interest. Let's talk about the Crawleys' trip to the point-to-point horse race. Atticus Aldridge was there, yay! I'm really liking the relationship between him and Rose. It's really cute. Guess who else is there? Mabel Lane Fox. And she is going with Mr. Blake's plan to win back Tony Gillingham. We'll see if it works. He was a little shocked to see her. But she was also invited to stay at Downton. So, you know it's gonna get pretty crazy. Back at Downton, Edith and Tom are all alone at the house. And she tells him, Tom, I'm going away. Like, for good. Tell everyone that I love them, but I can't be happy here, so I'm leaving. And he's just like, what? It's a shock. What is he supposed to say? It's crazy. So Edith goes to the Drews' farm, and she reveals to Mrs. Drew that she is Marigold's real mother. And Mrs. Drew is not believing this. She's like, there's no effing way. Edith shows her the birth certificate in French, and she rips it up in her face, and then Mr. Drew's like, no, it's true. This is what's going on. We need to let Edith take Marigold because she is her real mother. So Mrs. Drew is very upset, obviously. And, you know, it's tough because there have been many times where I'm like, oh my gosh, Mrs. Drew is so rude, blah, blah, blah. But at the same time, she took in this child. This child became part of their family, like one of their own, and now she's being ripped away. And I'm sure it's very upsetting. And of course, she feels betrayed by her husband. Her husband lied about this whole thing to her. And I'm sure there was a huge amount of shock, too. So Edith takes Marigold and leaves. So back at the horse race, can Mary and Maybelline Fox please be best friends? Because the witty banter between these two is legendary. It's great. I want them to be friends because it would be awesome. We also find out that Isabel, she told the Dowager Countess that yes, she did accept Lord Burton's wedding or marriage proposal. I'm so excited. But she's not going to tell the family until everyone's together, so keep it on the down low. All right. Also, things are getting pretty serious between Rose and Atticus because Lady Grantham invites Atticus's parents to dinner at Downton tomorrow night. Should be good. So they all get back to Downton and they find out Edith is gone. So it's pretty crazy. The Dowager Countess knows obviously what's up. She's the only one besides Rosamond who knows the full story. So she goes down to the Drews' farm to investigate without telling anyone. And they don't tell her where Edith has gone. I don't even know if they know for sure where she went. I don't know if she told them. But they don't give the Dowager any information about that. But we find out that Edith brought Marigold to some hotel. But where are you? They didn't say where she went. I'm assuming it was probably London, but who knows? So, with the downstairs crew, Carson, again, he's thinking about that retirement. And you know, so many people for a few seasons now have been hoping that something would happen between Carson and Mrs. Hughes, and it looks like we're getting one step closer to that. Oh my God, it's happening. Carson asks Mrs. Hughes to buy a property with him. So he's like, oh, it's just business. No, it's not. So Mrs. Hughes gets all flustered about it too. She's just like, oh, get out of here. So hopefully that'll be a yes. But anyway, next week is going to be so great. This whole season has been awesome. But next week, it's going to be crazy. Lots of love in the air. Rose and Atticus. There's the whole Mary, Charles, Tony, Mabel thing going on. But, like, what's going to happen with Edith? Is she gone for good? Leave it in the comments. Do you think Edith will be back? What's going to happen with that? That's all I have. So, until next time, much love.